Now we have some learnings and listenings to Reverend Dr. King's sermon on fear. Dr. King preached the sermon on fear in 1957. Some sources suggest he preached this at the Dexter Baptist Church in Montgomery, Alabama. Although the words are 63 years old, listen for how this wisdom rings true for today. Our fears assume many different disguises and dress themselves in strangely different robes. There are those superstitious fears that range from walking under a ladder to a fear of Friday the 13th. Everywhere we find men and women facing these fears. They fear bad health, so they begin to find evidence of disease in every meaningless symptom. They fear growing old, so they dose themselves with a succession of drugs advertised to keep them young. When they are not worried about their physical health, they are worried about their personalities. They fear others and they fear themselves. So they are driven through life with a sense of insecurity, a lack of self-confidence, and a nagging fear of failure.
Then there are economic fears, which are especially real in this high competitive society. Karen Horney has set forth the thesis that most of the psychological problems of our age grow out of this gnawing economic fear. Many men are tormented by the possible or actual failure of their business. Others are tortured by the uncertainty of the stock market. Numerous people are plagued with the fear of unemployment and the collapse of their careers because of a force called automation. One of the tragic things about unemployment is that it crushes a man's sense of pride, drowns his spirit, and leaves him standing before his wife and children as disastrous failure. How real and frustrating are our economic fears? So the problem of fear is one of the most serious problems of modern life. It leaves so many people psychologically wrecked and spiritually dejected. Now, this does not mean that we should ask to eliminate fear altogether from human life. Such an understanding would not only be humanly impossible, but practically undesirable. Fear is the elemental alarm system of the human organism which warns us of approaching dangers. Without it, man could not have survived in the primitive world, nor could he survive in the modern world.
Fear is a powerfully creative force. Every great invention and every intellectual advance has behind it, as part of its motivation, the desire to escape some dreaded thing. The fear of darkness caused man to discover the secret of electricity. The fear of pain led to that marvelous discoveries of medical science. The fear of ignorance was one reason that we built great institutions of learning. The fear of war was one of the forces behind the birth of the United Nations. Angela Paltry was right in saying, education consists in being afraid at the right time. If we were able to take away man's capacity capacity to fear, we would take away his capacity to grow, invent, and create. Some fear is normal, necessary, and even creative. So our problem is not to get rid of fear, but to harness and master it. How then is this to be mastered? First, we must face our fears without flinching. We must honestly ask ourselves why. Why are we afraid? The confrontation will, to some measure, grant us power. So let us take our fears one by one and look at them fairly and squarely. By bringing fears to the forefront of consciousness, we may find them to be more imaginary than real. We can master fear not only by facing it and understanding it, we master fear through courage. Courage has always been considered a supreme virtue.
Courage is that quality which enables us to stand up to any fear. It is a final determination not to be stopped or overwhelmed by any object, however frightful it might be. Many of our fears are very real and not mere snakes under the carpet. Fear is also mastered through love. The New Testament is right in saying there is no fear in love, but perfect love casts out fear. Now the word love in the New Testament is not something soft and sentimental. It is very strong love that could carry Christ to a cross and send Paul sailing unembittered through the angry seas of persecution. It is love facing evil with an infinite capacity to take it without flinching, to overcome the world by the cross.
Our own problem of racial injustice must be solved by this same formula. The whole system of racial segregation is buttressed by a series of irrational fears. Fear of losing a preferred economic position. Fear of losing social status. Fear of intermarriage. Fear of adjusting to a new situation. Numerous white people spend sleepless nights and haggard days attempting to fight these corroding fears. During the bus protest in Montgomery, Alabama, one of the most dedicated participants was an elderly woman whom we affectionately called Mother Pollard. Although poverty-stricken and uneducated, she was amazingly intelligent and possessed a deep understanding of the meaning of the movement. Once, she was asked after several weeks of walking whether she was tired. "My feet is tired," she answered, "but my soul is rested." This was just one example of her ungrammatical profundity. One Monday evening, after having gone through a tension-packed week, which included being arrested and receiving numerous threatening calls, I went to the mass meeting depressed and fear-stricken. My address, I tried in it to desperately give an overt impression of strength and courage, but deep down within the soul of my inner life was the nagging serpent of fear which left me poisoned with the fangs of depression. At the end of the meeting, Mother Pollard came to the front of the church and said, "Come here, son." I immediately walked over to her and gave her a big hug. Then she said, "Something is wrong with you. You didn't talk strong tonight." Seeking to keep my fears to myself, I retorted, "Oh no, Mother Pollard, nothing is wrong. I am feeling as fine as ever." "Now you can't fool me," she said. "I know something is wrong. Is it that we ain't doing things to please you? Or is it that the white folks is bothering you?" Before I could answer, she looked directly into my eyes and said, "I done told you, we is with you all the way." And with a countenance beaming with quiet certainty, she concluded, "But even if we ain't with you, God's gonna take care of you." Everything in me quivered with the pulsing tremor of raw energy when she uttered those consoling words. The majestic words of Mother Pollard have come back again and again to give light and peace to the hinterlands of my troubled soul. God's gonna take care of you. This is a faith that can transform the whirlwind of despair into the soothing breeze of hope. There's an old familiar motto which says, "Fear knocked on the door. Faith answered. There was no one there."